Now, before I begin, I'd like to thank at Conquest64, love the name by the way, for not only requesting this review, but for recommending this film. I love all 22 of my subscribers, but today, here are my favorites. Welcome back, horror fans. I'm Leo, and Bootube Breakdowns is here to save your scary movie night. Right off the bat, Creep scores a 6.8 out of 10, landing it in our Ghoul Drool category. But here's the thing. I've already had to record a psychotic killer taking a shower with an imaginary baby just to get you this score, and in a few minutes I'll show you exactly why this film earned its rating. If you disagree with my score at the end of the video, be sure to let me know how much you want to sneak into my house at night and cut my hair while I'm asleep, and then be sure to like, share, and subscribe about it in the comment section. The story that we follow here is a, I guess, semi-found footage film where Joseph, a man with terminal cancer, hires Aaron to film him as if they were living a normal life with his soon-to-be-born son, Buddy. He takes showers and imparts life lessons to his imaginary son, all in the hopes of leaving some footage for Buddy to get to know his dad a little better after Joseph passes. Over time, Joseph and Aaron start to go on little adventures, share personal stories, and they end up becoming genuine friends. It's not long, however, until Joseph gets exposed for making the whole thing up, and he turns out to actually be a very mentally disturbed person who is looking for a friend. When Aaron, understandably, leaves Joseph's house and avoids all contact with him, Joseph goes full Psycho X mode and stalks Aaron, leading all the way to Aaron's murder. All of this culminates in a surprise twist ending that recontextualizes the whole film and makes you question everything about those friends you keep around that are not bad, but just a little weird. This story plays out like a drama gone wrong, and culminates into one of the most unexpected horror gems I've seen in a while. The first roughly 3/4 of the movie, we're watching Joseph and Aaron's relationship go from professional to outright platonic. Shout out to Mark Duplass. The sincerity in his eyes and the way he walks and talks really makes you feel sorry for this guy who, up until the middle point, you really think that he's about to die of cancer. Honestly, with a bigger budget, a longer runtime, and a different ending, this could have easily been a very compelling friendship story. And that's kind of the point before the psycho twist. It's a slow burn film without being slow for runtime's sake. None of it felt forced or out of place, and the little cracks in Joseph's stories here and there were a treat to watch out for. Learning that this man is disturbed and just kills Aaron outright would have been a lazy but understandable approach. Instead, the film goes the extra mile to show off some Psycho X things that he did, and has it culminate in Aaron's death, which was a much more natural progression than what I expected. Sure, there's a few plot points here and there that I have an issue with. Like, for starters, Joseph's sister Angela talks to Aaron, and that phone call only really served to move the plot along without really going anywhere. This woman knew her brother was disturbed, missing, and spending the night with a complete stranger, and she never launched a manhunt for him? Also, there's the fact that for the story to work, Aaron has to be a complete idiot. Like, I get it, he called the cops for help, and they asked for evidence, and he said he had none, but, dude, Joseph's been sending you some creepy and threatening tapes. Get a restraining order and give the cops the tapes to identify the guy. All things considered, however, it's pretty well written, well acted, and definitely well enjoyed. I'll give the story quality here a 7 out of 10. Say it loud and say it proud. Slow burn, done right. This is not one of those spooky movies with flashy monsters coming out of the corner. This is an unsettling movie where the feeling, as the title says, creeps up on you. It takes time for the viewer to see the bond being formed between our two main characters, but it was all deliberate and calculating, and by the way, it's just like Joseph. The call with Angela was definitely a break just to move the plot along, but honestly, it wasn't even that egregious of an offense. Overall, once the reveal happens, Joseph constantly escalates the situation. He acts like a crazy ex by sending weird video messages, gifts in the mail, and even breaking into Aaron's home and stealing some of his hair. Stuff like that. In my opinion, doing slow burn is very difficult, and while not perfect, I would say that this film definitely does it well. I'll be giving the pacing for this one a solid 8 out of 10. Yeah, I made the pun before, but it just fits perfectly here. The fear is more of a creeping unease than actual flashy, dangerous creatures or killers. At first, Joseph is kind of weird and overall kind of sad and pathetic. However, we start to notice cracks in his stories, and as soon as the Peach Fuzz costume comes out, we knew we were in for a wild ride. After Aaron's escape, the creepy videos, the odd presence, and even the home invasions, there's something that lingers with you after the movie ends. The scene where Joseph cuts off Aaron's hair was a fantastic shot, for example. And while I can see how this movie can be very unsettling, in my opinion, it's also kind of tame in its approach. I cannot tell if this is because Aaron was such a gullible target and willing participant, or if because there wasn't enough runtime to make Joseph more sadistic. Like I said before, the horror isn't flashy, it just kind of lingers, and it didn't really do much for me in terms of fear. I'm going to give the fear factor for this one a middle of the road 5 out of 10. Although it wasn't as scary as I hoped, the movie was a treat to watch. The greatest part of the whole movie was actually the rewatch. Seeing how the mask is slipping at all times was great, and you get to realize just how much of a moron Aaron really was. It was one of the most frustrating aspects of the movie, but not in an unenjoyable way. It turns out that originally the movie was supposed to be a black comedy, but halfway through it was changed into just an outright horror movie, and I believe it adds a little bit of a charm to the whole thing in a way that plays into Joseph's character. Speaking of which, his madness was hilarious. There's bits where he's recording himself and does a little jump scare for the recording, and then he is watching the recording and actually scares himself while watching that recording of the jump scare that he created. It was one of my favorite snippets in this whole thing. The fun factor, however, really only tends to kick off in the later parts of the movie when the reveal happens, and that tonal shift is actually a bit jarring. Personally, slow burn is not something I look for in horror, but considering how well it was done, I believe it was definitely worth the watch just for this version of a psycho killer. That's why I'm thinking, giving the fun factor for this one a 7 out of 10. Now, in my opinion, although the ending was kind of bland and a little tame, it definitely wasn't a bad ending. We get a recording of Joseph making a confession and pondering why Aaron didn't look behind him when he showed up with an axe to kill Aaron. Joseph rationalizes the interaction in a way that only Joseph could before shutting off the camera. The ending I'm going by, and there's apparently like 6 different endings, is a recording of Joseph calling another person to start the killing ritual of having him being recorded for his imaginary son while he has cancer again. And the tape with Aaron's name is added to a closet with hundreds of similar tapes. In fairness, it is a chilling and well done ending for this kind of movie, and it asserts that notion that Joseph is not some unstable psycho that freaks out with his friend once, but rather a methodic killer that has done this hundreds of times and enjoys the process of humiliating his victims and emotionally manipulating them. However, it is a played out trope where the killer has multiple recordings of his victims and is pretty nonchalant about his collection as well as how quickly his next victim is queued up. In my opinion, a better version of this was done in the Poughkeepsie tapes, which I've already done a review on, link in the description. And while there is nothing really groundbreaking, it's overall a very good ending, and I'll give the movie credit for using a safe yet effective ending over trying something crazy and completely ruining the rest of the film. I'm going to give the ending on this one a 7 out of 10. So that's Bootube Breakdowns' take on Creep. Averaging our scores gives this movie a 6.8 out of 10, which places it in our Ghoul Drool category. Do you agree with my rating? Scream your score in the comments and tell me what horror flick I should get next. If this saved your spooky vibes, smash that like, share with your horror crew, hit that notification bell, and subscribe to Bootube Breakdowns for more killer verdicts. Thanks again to Conquest64 for the review request. Keep it creepy, and I'll haunt you in the next review.